Alright. Hey guys, I'm doing a video tutorial now because the recording turned out pretty long and really long-winded. So, we are going to build our own website and host it online using Netlify, and we're going to build it using gridsome. Now, gridsome is a really powerful static site generator, but I've also found it's been the easiest to use, and it's not too much of a conceptual leap from writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You do have to write JavaScript in a very strange way to add functionality, but there's a lot of documentation around it, and you can search up tutorials for how to build whatever you want in Vue, and it plays really nicely with the whole Vue ecosystem. So that's what you want to search for if you want to delve more into the JavaScript side. But we're going to build a website and host it online with Netlify. So the first thing we're going to need, to download a package manager. And this just makes it really easy to install the packages we'll need, which is Node and Git. Maybe you've already installed Git, but it's not a very big installation, and I recommend getting it again through Homebrew because it installs everything in a way that plays really nicely with everything else that's installed. And we'll be using the terminal, so it plays really nicely into the whole ecosystem. Brew is a package manager for Mac OS. If you've got a Mac, you're going to need to get it, and you just install it by copying this script here and opening up a terminal and then pasting it in. So I'd run that, but I already have package manager installed, so I don't need to do that. If you do have Windows, Windows is really weird. I had issues with the people in class, but you download Chocolatey. So it's a package manager for Windows. The installation's a little bit different. You have to run this in a PowerShell. Just follow these instructions in PowerShell. Once you have your package manager installed, also if you're on Windows and you do have GitHub Desktop, which we'll need later, I recommend running Chocolatey. Once you've installed it, running Chocolatey in the Git bash there, just because Git bash knows, it just works better. I'm not sure why. It was the only way I could get it to work for other people in that tutorial thing I ran. Alright, so first of all, we need to download Node. So the way you do that is, if you have Brew, you type Brew, or if you have Chocolatey, you type Choco, or for me, I write Pac-Man. But yeah, you write Choco or Brew, and then install, and then Node.js. So just replace that with whatever you're using. I brew install Node.js, and then once that's done, brew install Git. I don't have Brew, so I can't run it, but I've already got these installed. So once you've finished doing that, we need to download the gridsome CLI, which stands for command line interface, and that lets us make new projects. So when we download Node.js, it'll also come with a thing called npm, and you can test you've got it installed by typing npm space -v, which means version. So I've got version 6.7.0. That means it's installed. So I can write npm install, and then -g stands for global, which means I can access it from wherever. It's not like I have to run these commands in a certain subdirectory. And I type @gridsome -CLI. So I'm going to run that. Oh, I just realized, if you're on a Mac, you'll have to write sudo npm install -g @gridsome CLI. So type in your password. It'll take a moment to download and install. Oh, there's an update. Once that's done, we want to make our new project. So I have I've got a folder in my home folder called Workspace, which is where I keep all these projects. And in here, I want to add a new folder. Well, I want to put my project in a new folder. So I don't actually need to make the new folder. I just need to open the terminal where I want the new folder to be, because gridsome's going to do that for me. And then I type gridsome, create, and then whatever I want to call my project. So connorgmeehan.com, which is the domain I have. It will clone a starter pack, which has a couple of pages installed. It has a bit of the project set up, passing data around, and then it'll download all the dependencies it needs. It'll download all of like the actual gridsome program and all of the features it uses, such as something we'll see later. Where is it? Hot module. Hot reloading. Yeah, hot reloading, which is it means whenever you make a change, the website will instantly update and the page will refresh itself, and it means it's just super easy to make changes and see it update immediately. So I've got my folder here, connorgmeehan.com. I'm going to open it in Visual Studio Code Insiders, which is what I use. And I'm just going to put that on a different workspace. So on the terminal, it says enter your directory with cd connorgmeehan. I already opened the project in Visual Studio, so I don't need to do that. There's also, it says once you're in the project, you can run gridsome develop to start local development, which is what we're going to do. And then when you're ready to finish the project, you run gridsome build. And this will generate the whole website, which you can put online somewhere. So in Visual Studio, this has the project open, connorgmeehan.com. And a cool thing with Visual Studio, if you press Control tilde, you get a terminal. So inside of here, I can run gridsome develop. And it's going to just build a version of our website quickly, and then it'll say compiled successfully in 127 milliseconds, blah, 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 and site running at this address. So you can control click that link, and it'll take you to your website. I'm just going to type it in because my default browser is some weird one. And this is the website. So it's really simple. We've got an image, hello world, some lorem ipsum, and then some links to the gridsome docs and the gridsome project on GitHub. We don't really need to worry about them. Gridsome docs is a good place to get more information if you're having problems. And we also have this nav bar, which has the sort of our brand or our website name, which right now is called gridsome. And then we also have a home and an about page. And if we go to the about page, you'll see that the nav bar is still there. And that's because if we have a look at the pages inside of source, pages, and about, you'll see it just says about us and then a paragraph of lorem ipsum and not much else. There's also this script that exports some shit that I'll get to later, but really all we have in the page is a heading and a paragraph. But when we look at the page, we can see that there's still this nav bar. So how's this working? It uses this layout here. So it's wrapping the page in a layout that we define, and the area this is defined in is in the layouts folder in source. So if you go to default, you'll see there's a header, and it has our site name, which I'll explain what this is in a moment. It has a site name, and it also has the home and about links. Additionally, it has this slot tag, which doesn't have, it's by itself. It doesn't have a second slot tag. It's just a slot where the contents of the page gets inserted. So if we move this, say, above the header, and we go back to the website, you'll see the nav bar is now below the contents of the page. So we'll put it back down there. Another thing, we'll see it's using what's called a G-link. This stands for gridsome link. And basically it's a replacement for the anchor tag. And what it does is when a user hovers over one of these links, it'll start fetching all of the data it needs to access that page, so that when the user goes to click on it, instead of having to reload all that information, it already has it and it immediately loads the page, which is why we get such good response speed on switching between home and about. You won't be able to notice it when you're just building the website on local, just because there's no internet connection to bottleneck you. But once you get it online, the difference is like day and night. Additionally, we have this static query here. This is Gridsome's way of fetching data. It uses GraphQL. It's not really worth... It's a pretty big topic to cover, so for now it's best if I just explain which GraphQL queries we'll be using, and then if you want to put more effort into learning, you can. But it is a pretty big topic. One thing I will say, it's cool because you request the data in the same way you receive the data. So we have a static query here, and query just means we're declaring that this is a query. So we've got a static query looking for metadata, and inside of metadata we want site name. And it means we can use this information here. We want to get $static, which is the static query. We want from that the metadata, and from that the site name. And this is inside double squiggly brackets. And this is how you tell view. It's how you tell view, which is what Gridsome is built on, that we don't want to literally render the contents of whatever's in the squiggly brackets. We want to evaluate what it is equal to. So a similar way of explaining it is, if this were HTML, this would render 3 plus 8. But if I refresh the page, 3 plus 8 equals 11. So it's doing the maths, it's processing it like it were JavaScript, I guess. So that's a really interesting way of seeing how Vue and Gridsome use data to sort of automate site generation. Now, right now it says Gridsome, and it also says Gridsome in the title, and that's not really what we want our site to be. This is a portfolio. So we need to modify this data. And the area this data originates from is in gridsome.config.js. And you can see here it says site name Gridsome. Now we want it to be a portfolio, so I'm going to write Connor Guy Meehan portfolio. And then it won't automatically update because gridsome.config.js can't be reloaded. We're just going to have to restart the website. So you can press Control-C, and it's the same on a Mac. Control-C to cancel the gridsome develop in the terminal, and then run gridsome develop again. And it'll rebuild. And we go back to our website. Oops. And there it is, Connor Guy Meehan portfolio. And in the tab title, it'll also say Connor Guy Meehan portfolio. Okay, so let's start sort of customizing this website how we want to make it. I'm just going through my notes. Hold on. Okay. So let's change the contents of the homepage. And this is in pages index.view. which is, you can see that this would be the same as having index.html or about.html. Yeah, it gets processed as its own page. So again, we've got everything in this layout tag, and then we have the contents. We have an image, a title, some lorem ipsum text, and some home links. Let's just get rid of the home links because we won't be using them. So g-image is a kind of like how g-link is an A tag with some cool features added to it. G-image is an image tag with some cool features added to it. And if you refresh the page really quickly, you'll notice that there's a blurry green square that renders immediately, and then it gets filled in by this image of the gridsome logo. That is a cool feature of gridsome where if you look on Medium articles, hopefully I'll find one with an image. I think it's Medium articles, not the homepage. When you load them, the pictures come in blurry at first. No, maybe it's not Medium articles. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm thinking of. But a technique of loading pages quickly and not having users annoyed by slow load times is for images the user downloads a very, very small blurry version that populates the image and kind of gives a hint that there's going to be something there. And then once that image is loaded, it switches them and the high quality one comes in. And that means content isn't jumping around the page because new stuff gets added. And it just looks really cool. I wish I could show you a better example. But it's cool, but we won't need it. Not yet, at least. So we've got our hello world, we've got our lorem ipsum, and I press save, it compiles. I go back to my website, and we're pretty bare bones. So I'm going to update this to say, hi, my name is Connor. And I'm going to update this to say, I'm a second year student studying design computing. So this is just like kind of the introduction to my website. I'm going to put this in a div called hero. And div, cap that off. Cool. No changes. Now in the style tag. Did I go through what a view component looks like? We've got the template, which is the way the page is laid out. We've got the script, which controls the behavior of this page or this component. And then we have the styles, which defines the styles of this page and this component. So it's a really nice way of having everything together rather than split into 3 files and shared by the entire website. So I've got this hero tag. I want to add some padding so everything is spaced out a bit better. So hero padding, 5 rem, 1 rem. Give it a background of dark, I don't know, salmon, yeah, and color white. Ugh. I actually like salmon though. Let's go dark salmon. Damn, I want to change the color. I want like off salmon now. Off black salmon. Whatever. 3, 7. Nice. Jesus. Perfect. So we've got our hero tag, our hero content, and we've got we want to add sort of a div to contain all of our portfolio works. So beneath that, let's add div class equals portfolio works. Cool, let's give it a title. My portfolio works. Sweet. My portfolio works, yeah. Looks pretty mediocre. And I really want to pizzazz it up a bit with a front-end framework. So I'm just going to go with Bootstrap because most people know it. I've got it here, get Bootstrap 4 just because it's newer. It's what I'll be using. You can get any front-end framework you like, anyone you're comfortable with, but I am going to base the rest of this off Bootstrap. So we download Bootstrap and we open it up. And inside of Bootstrap there's dist, which stands for distribution. This is just the sort of final compiled version, and all we'll need is bootstrap.min.css. Min stands for minified, and you can see it's like 30 kilobytes smaller than the non-minified version, and that's good because we're not gonna ever edit this Bootstrap CSS file. So the other one is formatted nicely. We don't need that because that's not how you should be using Bootstrap. So now we need to import it into our project. Mine's in workspace. What do I call it? Conagman. Yeah, conagman.com. Put it in source, and then make a new folder called vendor. And vendor's just a pattern for placing code that you've downloaded but you haven't written. It's been supplied by a vendor, if you will. Yeah. So we extract that there, close that up, and where are we? Back here. Let's minify everything. Cool, so in our source folder, we have the vendor folder, and in that we have bootstrap.min.css. Now, we need to make bootstrap.min.css available to every page. And one file we haven't looked at yet is the main.js, which is where your Vue project gets initialized. It gets initialized by gridsome, really. And you can see here, we're importing default layout from layout/default.vue. This tilde just means it's from the root of the project, or from the source folder, the root of the source folder. So it would be layouts default view, layout source, layouts default view. Now, we initialize the default layout and we call it layout. And that means it's available to every page as the layout component, which is how we can wrap everything in the layout component. Similarly, we actually don't need to do this view component, but we can just write import, and we will do the tilde, because we want to go from the source folder, and we go vendor, and we go bootstrap.min.css, and we save that. We don't need to do any of this because it's just a CSS file, it's not a view component. And if we go back to our website, where is it? Here we go. You can see that the text here has changed. This still looks horrendous, but yeah, the text has changed. And we can still switch between pages and everything. So, let's get rid of some annoying styling in the default.vue. So it's actually setting some pretty nice fonts, so I'll leave that. But you can change the fonts you want there. I want to get rid of layout, because right now our page, the max width our page can be is 760 pixels. So I'm just going to delete it because we are going to make our own sort of page layout in Bootstrap. And there's also a header and a nav link. We're going to replace that soon. But going back to our page, everything's really wide now. Okay, so we should get a Bootstrap navbar, because they look way better. So I'm going to search up Bootstrap navbar. And I'll find one I like. I think it was this one I liked. No, this one's really long. It's got a big list thing, which I don't really like. Yeah, we can avoid, this one. I just like this one because it's simple and short. I don't really need anything more. I kind of like having the links on the right hand side, but we can add that ourselves. It's the power of Bootstrap. So yeah, where was it? I'll go back to it so I'm not jumping ahead. Here we go. It's this one. It's pretty simple. It's like 10 lines. So we're gonna keep this is the old header. We're just gonna keep it so we can move across all of the changes so we can move across all of the sort of gridsome specific stuff, but we'll just copy and paste the navbar there, and then when we go to our website, we'll see we've got two navbars. We've got this navbar and then the Connor, GME and Home and About one. So this one doesn't really work because we haven't hooked it up to anything. First thing we're going to do, we've got this navbar brand here, and it's an A tag. We can do better than an A tag. We can do a G-link. G-link and G-link. And instead of using an href, G-link uses the to. We write to instead of href. So we'll just copy and paste that there. And also, we don't want it to be called navbar. We want to be getting the site name from the metadata. So we'll copy and paste that as well. And then when we reload the page, it'll say Connor Guy, me, and portfolio. There is one thing about G-links is that you can't G-link to an ID. Like, if I wanted to G-link to a part of the page, I'd have to use an A tag. And that's because there's no way of prefetching an ID because it already exists. It's on the page that you're currently on. So you will get an error if you try and do that. You'll just have to use an A tag in that situation. So what's this? Navbar toggler. Is this for... Doesn't work. I'm deleting it. Really, you have to add the Bootstrap JavaScript to the page, which you should also put in vendor. If you did copy and paste bootstrap.min.js, you'd put it in vendor, and then in main.js you'd import the JavaScript like that. But I don't need or want any of the Bootstrap functionality, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to delete that from, delete the drop down button from my navbar. Cool. So here we are. Now we have all of these nav links: home, features, pricing, and disabled. We only have two nav links to use. We have home and about. So let's copy, we already have home. Let's copy about into features and delete the last two because we don't need any more than two right now. And we need to make these G-links again. G-link, and we'll replace that G-link and G-link. And again, we don't use href, we use to, and we want that to be to the root, and that one to be to the about page. Same layout as this. That should be everything. Home and about. Cool. So we can get rid of the old one. Okay. Now one thing, there's a span here on home, and it also says active as a class, We will add this later if we've got time, but for now we'll just have to delete the active. And this span has a class called SR only, which stands for screen reader only. So it's an accessibility feature you can add to your website, but right now we don't have a way of telling what page we're on, so it would actually reduce access it would reduce access because it would be wrong if they were on the about page. So we have nav item, nav link, that's all good. Cool, we've got our nav bar. And I said that I wanted these on the right hand side, so bootstrap navbar right links. Yeah, that sounds good. Very nice. Collapse, dual collapse, margin left auto. Alright. We can add navbar nav. Actually, because we deleted the button to collapse the navbar, we can also delete this class surrounding the navbar nav. That should still work. Yep. And we should just be able to write ml-auto. Cool, it's on the right hand side. So what ml-auto does, this is a class in Bootstrap, and it's shorthand for margin left. Oh, whoops, that's not how you write it. Left auto. So it literally just assigns one property to it, but it's nice having these sort of helper classes. There's a lot of them in Bootstrap, and to use Bootstrap to its full ability, you should search up if any of this stuff is possible before you go ahead and sort of, you should get a feel for all those helper classes. Cool, so we got our navbar with the home and the about page. Now this is looking pretty sad still, so I want to use the Bootstrap Jumbotron. This is another class. It's used to create this kind of layout, all the sort of introductory content, I guess. And we'll do that in index.view. So I'm going to get rid of hero because that was just a placeholder. Jumbotron. Yeah, Jumbotron. Okay. Well, it looks almost the same. So let's just kind of copy this. This is a really nice looking one, actually. Well, it's quick and easy. Sweet. Jumbotron. Instead of hello world, we're going to write, hi, my name is Connor. And instead of lead, we're going to write, I'm a second year student. Cool. Alright, what does it look like? Oh, it looks really generic, but like, whatever. This is something that you could just build on top of, and it would look pretty good. So let's have a look at this. Jumbotron is going to create a really wide div with a lot of padding. I actually prefer way more padding than this, so I will re-add the hero class, and I'm going to just add padding top is like 10 rem, padding bottom 10 rem. Yep. It adds padding and background color, really light background color. Display 4 is a Bootstrap typography class. If we search up Bootstrap typography, heading 4, where is it? display for. So it's just a sort of fancy different heading if you want something to stand out. It's another Bootstrap utility class, and there's also lead, and that would be good for adding catchy text. That's how they describe it. You want to catch people. It's the first bit of actual content you want people to read. HR. I've completely forgotten what an HR element is. Paragraph level thematic break. Right, so this would be the this is the line that goes across our website, goes across there. And again, we're using this utility class, my-4. my-4 stands for margin y, as in y-axis, top or bottom, and 4 is the size. Like, if I made it margin 1, there'd be a really small gap. If I made it margin 4, it'd be a big gap. It uses... I don't really need that. So for the button, I want to direct people towards my portfolio works. So I'm going to add an ID equals works, and the href will be works. And I'll get rid of this text, I don't really need it. Learn more. Even though it's literally right there, I'm still gonna add it. Okay, so now we've got our Jumbotron to introduce people, and we've got our portfolio works. Let's mock up how we want it to be laid out. So we've got portfolio works. If you remember, using Bootstrap, we need to put it in a container, and this just makes it responsive. So it'll adjust based on the width of the screen. Then if we have content, we put it in a div row. And then inside of that, we have each element we want. So I will add a col-md-6. And going back to Bootstrap, this means it is a column up to the medium breakpoint that is 6 out of 12 wide. So that's shorthand for 6 out of 12. Everything in Bootstrap is done in 12s. If you did 4 out of 12, you'd fit 4 in a row. If you did 6 out of 12, it's 2 in a row. It's really handy. And we are also going to give this the class of work, because this is the individual portfolio. This is the container where we're going to have each portfolio piece itself. Cool. So inside of that, we'll use, we'll add a new class, this will be a h2, because this will be the heading, and we'll call it work title. And portfolio piece. I can't type. Work 1. I can't spell. And we'll give it a short description. Copy and paste that. Cool. So we've got my portfolio works, and then a portfolio work and a short description. So right now, if we add a couple of these, we'll see that they're like right next to each other. This won't do. We need to have it inset a little bit. So the way I'm going to do that is by putting the content of each work piece in a work card component. And there, cool. So now we have all of the content in work card, and that means we can add padding to work and push everything in without messing up the Bootstrap columns. So I'm going to add a work selector and add padding 2 rem, 1 rem. So that means 2 rem vertically and 1 horizontally. Cool, it's spaced a little bit better. If we add a couple, doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look great either. Maybe a bit more padding horizontally. It's pretty mediocre. Whatever. This is something you can tweak. Also, one thing on the work card component, work card, I'll add a box shadow just to make it easier to visualize. I really like really faint big box shadows. So this means it's going to be offset 0 pixels to the left and right, 0 pixels up and down, 20 pixel spread, and completely black but only 10% opacity. And the result is going to be a really subtle box shadow. It still doesn't look very good because the inside of the work card needs some padding as well. So we'll just give it 1 rem all around, and it's okay. Again, this is something you could work on. You could add border radius would help make it look, I don't know, it's really this is a band-aid on the yeah, this is something you just got to tweak on yourself, by yourself, sorry. Also, you'll notice I'm using REMs. They're just an alternative to pixels. Pixels are kind of a weird unit because they don't really mean anything anymore with really high HD monitors and phones. A pixel is not the same between browsers, and I don't know, REM's nice. Okay, let's bump that up a bit, I can't really see it. So we've got our portfolio works. This is just a really simple example. We could add an image later, we'll get to that. But right now, we've still got the same problem we have if we make a website ourselves, which is we've copied what's essentially the same element like 3 times to add our data, and it's a bit it's not really it doesn't really help us. Like, that's what we're trying to avoid. Why are we copying the same thing 3 times and laying it out the same way to have like slightly different data being represented? Like, all we need is different titles and different descriptions. And the way we do this... Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I just had to take a break because I was like losing my train of thought a lot. So we want to get data to render each post, and the way we are going to use that is by using markdown files. Now, markdown files are basically a really nice way of writing documents. If I go to the readme.md, you can see here this is a markdown file, and we've got a title, and we declare that it's a title by writing a hash and then a space before it. And this means this would be the equivalent of an H1 because it has 1 hash. And similarly, if we want an H3, we've got 3 hashes. If I add another hash and save it, you'll see it shrinks a bit. We can go all the way up to an H6. And basically we can say, this is my markdown file, so that's like a paragraph. If we want to bold it, we put it in asterisks. If we want to italicize, we just do 1 asterisk. I think 3 asterisks does something, not sure. But you can search up the docs, you can do a bunch of things, like you can make list of elements. They're really handy. They're a really simple way of writing documents. This is what we're going to use. So we're going to make each portfolio piece its own markdown file. So we're getting data from the file system, which means we need a plugin to get data from the file system. Let me reopen my notes. So the way we do that, we need to install some new plugins. First, stop the process by... Oh shit. Is my keyboard working? Okay. First, stop the gridsome develop process with Control-C again. And then we need to install a new package, 2 new packages on npm. The first one is gridsome/source-file system and gridsome/transformer-remark. Source file system gets it allows us to access the file system as a data source, and transformer remark converts markdown files into HTML that we can render on the website. We'll also need to type similarly to how we wrote -G for global, meaning we can access it from anywhere. We're going to write ~dev for dev, and this means we can only access it when we're running the server as development, in the development build. It won't get included when we actually build our project and push it onto our website, because once we push it to the website, we've already generated all the pages. It's not like we need to generate more or to be able to read markdown files, because the pages will already exist. So we run that. And while it's downloading, we need to configure the plugin. So we do that in the gridsome.config.js. I'll close that. And we have this plugins array. This is a property of the config object. So this is the JavaScript object. We've got the plugins property, and it's an array. And we need to add a new element to the array. And this element is going to be a empty object, because gridsome will look through the plugins array, and for each object it'll look for a couple things. The first thing is the use property, and the use property defines which plugin we're configuring. So we need to write @gridsome/source-file system. So this is telling gridsome we want to apply some settings to the source file system plugin. And then we write comma and then options, and this is where we add the options for the source file system plugin. Again, new object, and we can add parameters. We're going to add a path, and this is where the plugin's going to look for these files. So let's add works. We'll put it in a folder called works, and then we write **, which means we'll look in any number of subdirectories. So any file in the works folder, we're going to look for in any number of subdirectories, so it can be as nested as we like. And then we write *.md, and this means we're looking for any file that ends in .md, which this is the file extension of a markdown file. You can see it here on readme. It's readme.md. And we also need to add a type name, and we'll call it work with a capital W. This is like defining each markdown file. We're going to define it as a work object. And we'll be using this later as the magic name of the data. It's like calling it a work object. I'll show you later. So once that's done, because we modified the gridsome config and we also installed the extensions, we need to rerun gridsome develop. Also, we don't need to make any changes to the gridsome transformer remark. We don't need to define its use in plugins. It knows how to, it's individual, strong, independent, all that. Okay. So we need a folder called works. Now, if we had it like /, it would be from the source folder, but I don't want to put too much stuff in the source folder, so I'm going to click out of so I'm not selecting any files in the Finder, and then I'll click New Folder, and I'll write Works. And this adds a new folder in the root. You got to make sure it's in the root, not in the source folder, otherwise gridsome won't be able to find the posts that we want to make. Inside of that, we make a new folder and we call it examplework.md, and we can write this is an example work. So this is like the header of the post, and then this is some example content. Okay, there's some example content. Cool. Now, one thing about Markdown is we can define something called front matter. Now, front matter is like metadata associated with it's associated with each post. So you define it with 3 dashes on two lots of 3 dashes, and we can define the front matter here. So we need a title, and we'll call it example work 1, and we'll give it a description of this is my example work. Sick. Now, beneath in the terminal, there's this link that we haven't had a look at yet, and it's the same localhost link with 3 underscores and then explore. And this is a sort of playground where we can make GraphQL queries and request information from the file system. So we'll go back to our browser and back to our website, duplicate, and I'm going to man, I hate this. Triple underscore and then explore, and it'll load up this environment. GraphQL Playground, cool. Don't look at that. So, basically we can write queries in the text box on the left and then hit run or control enter, and we'll get the result. So it's a really good way of like playing around with data. So if you'll remember earlier on the, where was it, source layouts, default, we have this static query for query metadata site name. Let's just copy it and see what we get. Site data, metadata, sorry, what was it? Metadata site name. And we get the same information, Connor Guy Man portfolio. Cool. But we don't want the site name, we want to get all of the portfolio works. So the way we do that is we use the all work query. You'll notice work is identical there to the type name. So if you called it like blog post or portfolio piece, it would be all blog post or all portfolio piece. Inside of this, you can press Control Space and it'll give you selections. So I'm going to write total count and Control Enter. Now total count is 0, which means it's not finding the Markdown file that we made, and I have a feeling I just need to restart the server. You will need to do this from time to time. Hot module reloading can't get everything, but if I rerun this, yeah, there we go. All work total count equals 1. Cool. So the way we query this list of portfolio works is we write edges and then node, and nodes has the data for each portfolio work. And let's get the title, description. Why isn't this showing up? Let's get the path and content for now. And you'll see the title will be the same as we defined. The path will be the folder works, and then the name of the file without the .md extension, and then the content is just raw HTML. And this means if we inject this raw HTML into the page, we can render the content of each document, which is sick. Let's see if description works. It's not showing up, but maybe it'll work. Yep, description. This is my example work. Awesome. So right now we're getting data from the file system. And if we copy and paste that, we've got example work 1. Let's make it example work 2 actually. This is my example work 2. Save that and reload it. You'll notice we get two portfolio pieces. It's pretty cool. But how do we use this data? We go back to our index page. So this is where we want to be rendering these little teasers of each portfolio piece that we have. So the way we do that is we need to add a query. So on default.view, we've got a static query, and this means because default.view is used by index and used by about.view, we don't know, it can run on any page, so we don't get any sort of contextual information like what page we're currently on. I don't know what else. Basically, we have to run sort of a request for information without any contextual information, I guess, which we'll have to use later. There's no way of explaining it right now, but I'll explain more later. But for index.view, it's a page, so it does have that contextual information, and it means we have to write page query instead of static query. So that means we get a little bit more features, and I don't know. Just write page query. And we have this query here, which is getting all the information we need. We may as well copy and paste it into our page query. And it has compiled successfully. Cool, I got macOS Sierra downloaded. Okay, so to test it out, let's just add a little paragraph underneath the title, My Portfolio Works. And inside of that, we want to see how many portfolio pieces we had. And if you recall here, we have the query for all work and then total count, which means we can, because it's a page query, we write $page, all work, total count. And then we reload the page, and you'll see here 2. And we can add sort of HTML around it, so we can do I have this many portfolio pieces. I have 2 this many portfolio pieces. It's not grammatically incorrect, but whatever. So it's working correctly. Now, what we need to do is for each portfolio piece we have, we want to re-render one of these elements. And the way we do that is by using a for loop, and in Vue, that's by adding a v-for, not sure what these are called actually, tag, parameter. We add v-for to our div, and inside of that we can write work in page.allWork .edges. And we also, because this is just a Vue thing, we need to give each, in a for loop, so Vue knows that each div is unique and identifiable, we need to give it a unique ID. And a good way of doing this is by requesting an ID from the for each post, and then we do v-bind work.node.id, and then v-bind key. Key equals. Okay, so this is shorthand for view bind, and we are binding a key, and the key is equal to work.node.id. This is just something you have to copy and paste. I can explain a bit more later once I have more to go off, but yeah. So this is going to create a for loop for every post we have in our document, and it's going to get the data for each post as work. So for the title, we can replace portfolio work with double brackets, and then work.node.title. And similarly here, we can get double brackets and work.node.description. Sweet. And we won't need this anymore because we're getting and importing the data and it's looping through it. So here, we're defining how data gets displayed once, and then when we go back to our website, we've got two elements showing up, and these correspond with the two markdown files here. They're actually a bit buggy. I think this might be something with gridsome needing to be restarted, so I'm just doing that again. And it should reload. Yep, example work 1 and example work 2. Groovy. So, we're getting data from the front matter of each markdown file. That's pretty sick. Right now they don't do anything though. We can't click on it and go to the portfolio piece. So that's going to be the next step. Now, we need to make the whole thing linkable. And the way I'm going to do that is by replacing this div with a g-link and g-link. So this is making it a linkable tag again. And we do the same thing. We do 2 equals and we can write the path here. But we don't know what the path is going to be because it's going to be different for each file. But in the query, for each portfolio piece, we're getting inside of node, we're getting the path. So we write work.node.path. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if this will work. 2 equals. Yep. We're going to have to use the same here, how we have colon key. We're going to have to do :2. And that's just because we're not passing a string like we are in the navbar, just to the about page. We're passing some data and we want view to evaluate what it is. So again, this is shorthand for binding data. And if you go to gridsome glink docs, you can see all the different ways you can do it. So you can write a pure string, you can, I don't know what this is, but you can also bind a variable. Okay, so, oh Jesus Christ. Let's wrap the old div in a glink. So we got a glink around the work card, and that means we can click on each glink. And also it looks horrible, but you can just restyle this how you like. Okay, so what happens if we click on it? Oh, we 404. You can see the URL is works/example-work, and for this one it's works/example.work2. But right now we haven't really defined how we want gridsome to render this page. And the way we do that, we need to do that. Hold on, I'm going through my notes again. Yes, we need a new template. Now, in gridsome config, we called it a work, and that means inside of the templates folder in source, we also need to call it a work. So make sure they're called the same thing. Work.view for me, and then we need to write a new view component. They start with a template. Actually, I have some. I have completions, which is very handy. So they've got a template, and inside of that they got a layout, which we put the content in, and they have styles, and I prefer different tabbing. Cool. Okay. And let's just write a placeholder. This is my portfolio work. Okay. So what happens when we click it? It says this is my portfolio work. They both will say that because they'll both render the same page, because we haven't gotten the data that we need to use. So again, we need data based on what page we're on, and we're going to use a GraphQL query for this. So we'll write page query, and this is where page query has more, oops, I forgot a slash. This is where a page query has more capabilities than a static query, because we'll write a new query, and we'll call it works, and right now we are defining a parameter to be passed into the GraphQL query. So it's gonna take a path for the current page as a string. Now I don't fully understand this, but I know it works. GraphQL is pretty weird. But in this we take the parameter of string, and then we want to look for a post, and this is an equality comparison. It's like equals, but we want to look for a post where the post we're looking for, we want to look for a work where the work we're looking for has a path equal to path that we take as a string. It's like, I don't fully understand this, to be honest. But basically this is going to let us get the current post for the current page that we're rendering. And inside of this we can get information like we normally would. We want the title, we want the description, and we want the content. Cool. So that's done. And now we can use this information in our page. So instead of h1, we do double squiggly brackets and then page.work.title. I think that's right. And then we also want h6 page.work.description, h6, and then div class equals content. And inside of this we do something special. So if you remember on the GraphQL query, where was it? On content, it's just raw HTML, and we need to inject this into the page somehow. Good thing though is that Vue provides a way to do that, and that's by writing v-html equals, and you just write page $page dot work dot content, and it'll write everything in here. So make sure you don't put anything in the div tag, and that should be it. So if I click here, example work 1, this is my example post. This is an example post. So right now we're displaying the information in a terrible way. Let's add some bootstrap layouts. Class equals container. Yeah, just container. Container. Actually, container, this can be in a div class equals Jumbotron, and h6 can be class equals display4, because that looked pretty good. Not really. Oh god. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Like, it's not great, but this can be in a container. This can be in a div class equals row. You do need to add the row in Bootstrap, because the way it works is that a row has a negative margin, and then each column will have a positive margin, and if you want it to line up on either side, you need to have both so they cancel out. So let's make this a col md 10 and col md offset 10. Actually, I don't need md. Oh, offset 1. Is this working? Not really. Make it 8. Oh, there we go. Oh, my offset's wrong. Bootstrap offset. So I'm just doing this because I don't want it to fill up the whole container. I think text is more legible when on narrower columns. But I still want it centered, so I'm just using Bootstrap to do that. Oh, dot offset. Okay. Offset 2. So offset 2, the offset class is pretty cool because you can make it like, it's like if you had a col md6 and then offset 6, it would be like putting it on the right hand side of the column and just skipping 6 full columns. So if I do col 8 and offset 2, that means I'm offset by 2, and then it's 8 wide, and then there's 2 left, so it's centered. And there we go. We've linked data and we're generating pages. That's pretty cool. So for now, let's try and get this online, and then we can add more features. So the way we do that is we create a Netlify account and a GitHub account. Okay. So Netlify is where we're going to host it. It's so simple. It's mind-blowingly simple. It's great. And you can host as many websites as you like for free, and you can add your own domain. I can't believe it exists. And it integrates really nicely with GitHub, which is why we're going to put our source code on GitHub so Netlify can automatically update our website for us. So first thing you should do is sign up for GitHub if you haven't, and then make a new repository. I'm going to call it connorgmeehan.com. I don't think I have one. Yep. And you can make it private or public, doesn't matter. Don't add a getignore or any of this. Just create the repository. And now we're going to have to add all of the content of what we've worked on to GitHub. A lot of people use GitHub Desktop, and the way you do that is you need to. So I'm not using that, but what you do is on GitHub Desktop you'd create a new Git repository let's say you call it like my new repository, and then you'd go into your project folder and copy and paste everything into my new repository, and then you'd push the changes to GitHub and update that. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to use the command line to add everything I've already added. So it pretty much tells me what to do here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. Git init, git add everything, git commit the message, first commit, git remote add origin, and I want to copy and paste that, and then git push u origin master. And I gotta log in. Sweet. That's everything. Now in Netlify, we log in or sign up. You can sign up with GitHub, which makes it really easy because you don't have to double up on logins. And then you click New Site from Git. To set up continuous deployment, which is what we want, we connect to our GitHub account. And I've already done that, so you just have to log in again. And then inside of your inside of Netlify, you've got to pick which repository we're going to use for this website. So mine's connorgman.com. Select that. We want to deploy master, and we need to write build command. And if you remember really early in this video, on the gridsome, after we built the project, it said do gridsome build if you want to deploy it somewhere. And if I run it now, you'll see that this new folder is made called dist, which stands for distribution, and that has index.html and a 404 page and all the JavaScript and CSS we use. It also has works with the pages generated for us. And basically you could upload, you could upload this dist folder to GitHub pages and it would work as a website. But the cool thing about Netlify is we can make it do all that for us. We will never have to upload it ourselves. We only need to update the GitHub repository and it'll automatically rebuild a new version of our website. So the build command is gridsome build and the published directory is dist. Then we click deploy. And you're actually done. Says site deploy in progress. If we click on that, it says building. You can watch it build. It takes a little bit. We'll go back, and if we click on overview, I think we can get the URL. I think we need to wait for it to build. Come on. Should be almost done. Site deploy in progress, building. Come on. Jesus. Deploy settings. Should be done. Okay, so it gives us this link on settings. And this is where we can look at our website. And there we go, it's online. And we can click on the works and it'll show up. By the way, I know this website looks terrible. My goal really is to just show you how you can link data together, because the rest is essentially HTML. And just the ability to pass data through front matter does open up a lot of possibilities. I'm going to show my website as an example. This whole page is generic. Nothing, even though it has all this content on this specific project with all these images, the whole thing is just a template. And that's because I passed for this, for example, I passed an image as a source URL and then made an image which took a source URL and just injected that data into the source part of the image tag. Or for this is like a description, this is the date, this is all just front matter, and then this is the content. So yeah, you can do a lot with it. And also, where did Netlify go? Here we go, overview. So it gives you this getting started tab, and you can set up a custom domain. And in here, this is probably the easiest way to get a domain and apply it, is you go to Namecheap, you find one you want. I don't know. Connor GM, I think that was free. I don't think I want it though. ConnorGM.com. Yeah, ConnorGM.com is free, available for purchase. Don't buy it through Namecheap because it's pretty expensive despite the name. And Netlify actually sells it to you for cheaper, which is crazy. So you'd write ConnorGM.com and then you'd verify. And they'd be like, it's available. It's $11 for the first year and then $16 for the rest. That's pretty good. I mean, it's really the same price as Namecheap, but they set up everything for you. So you can click add a payment method, register it now, it all gets set up. If you already have a domain, like I have www.connorgmean.com, it'll say it already has an owner, is this you? If you click yes, and then then you need to go to your domain provider and search up how to change the DNS for your domain provider and set it to the Netlify DNS. So there's some documentation around that. Message me if you have issues, I can help you through it. But that's really everything. One thing I'll add on, I think it is very important, nice, is images. We should have images. So cool image, actually placeholders.com. No, I'll get a cool image. Cool, very, very cool image. Wow, that's sick. Oh, wicked. So I'm just going to save an image to my project, and I'm going to put it in works, and I'm going to call it my work1.jpg. Groovy. Okay. Actually, I haven't done this, so this might be a problem. But in example work 1, I will add an image URL. And I will write /, which means current directory / and my work1.jpg with an E, and I'll restart gridsome develop. And let's see if I can get this information. In Gatsby I'll write image source, type work, image URL, sorry. Image URL. So it can be null, but sometimes it'll be Oh, sick. Sick. So, if we add a path to an image, we're not just getting the source of the image, we're getting the image, its type, the direct path, and all of the metadata. And this means we can use gimage's cool features. So I'm going to change this just to image. And image. Image. Restart the server because we changed the GraphQL, the way it looks up data. Yep, so image null for the one that doesn't have one. For the one that does, we have all this information. Okay, so in index.view, this is where we have all of the teaser type things. We can add a g-image. We will cap it off. And we also need to request the image in the GraphQL schema. And let's close all these. And gridsome image. So I'm looking at the docs to see what kind of data it needs. So it needs a source and a width. And gimage source equals source, width equals width, height equals height, fit equals contain. Sweet. So we will write source equals, and we want it to be work.node.image.source. I think that needs to be a bind. Yep. So we need the colon because we're passing data, not a string. And if we go back to home, we get a error. So if nothing renders on page, it's because of an error. Cannot read property source of null. This is because we need to check if it exists first. And the way we can do that is with v-if equals. So before we try and make this new image element and stuff, we need to check that work.node.image doesn't equal null. And here we go. Is that all working? There we go. So this is just kind of a testament to error checking. Alternatively, if you provided an image for every single blog post, then this wouldn't be an issue. So this is only a problem because on one of the blog posts, we do have this image in the front matter, and on another one we don't. So we go to our work, again, there's not much. We should add the image here as well, I guess. So in our work template, we can add in here, we'll do div v-if page.work.image doesn't equal null, div, and then g-image source equals page.work.image.source. Sweet. What's going on? Oh, it's got no closing template. Yep. Cannot read source of undefined. Forgot the equal sign. Cannot read source of undefined. Maybe I need the v-if back on this one. What's up with my nav bar? What on earth? Page dot. Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot to add it to the query image. There we go. Got the image there. Another thing that's worth knowing about is in the markdown file we can get images using this, I think it's exclamation mark, and then this is the alternate text, and then we have the URL of the image, so that would be / my-work-1.jpg, and yeah, then we embed it in the actual markdown file. So I just found this out by looking at the markdown docs. Things to remember if you want to add more content like skills. If you want a list of things, you do them like a JavaScript array, like L1, element 2, element 2, and then you'd use like v-4. But if you are adding to the front matter, you got to remember in your page to add it to the query. So you'd be like skills, and then you'd have a div class equals skills container, and v-if equals page.work.skills doesn't equal null, and then close the div, and then ul list v-4 equals skill in skills. Yeah, list. Key equals skill. Yeah. And then you'd write skill. Cannot query field skill and work. I think I need to restart it again. What's going on? Skills container. Skills. Skills. Is that how it works? I mean, alternatively, you can just leave it as a bit of text where you format it like, I learnt blah 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 blah. But it is nice to like think about how what's going on. Is there like, check it out in the playground image. Let's get rid of that, actually, it's too big. Skills. What's going on? Content, get rid of that. Skills. L1, element 2, element 3. Oh. Fuck. Page.work.skills. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so that's how you add new kind of data to the layout. And you can make really like pretty complex pages, and it's nice because you modify one file and for every single portfolio piece it gets changed as well. And the way you make each one unique is by changing the data. Like, if you wanted something that was only available on certain pages, then you just check if it exists first, and then if it does, make the changes to the page, and that gives you enough customizability. Also notice I've made changes. I can update everything. These are the changes I've made. Save it. So this would be committing in GitHub Desktop, and then you push it and publish to master, whatever it's called, and it'll make the changes. And then if we go back to Netlify, login, Gracious Borg, deploys from GitHub, last published at 4:12, it's 4:28 now. Once it actually publishes, username, Connor G. Man. Oh. Alright, just pushed it to master. If we refresh the page, this should be rebuilding in a moment. Oh, building, yeah. So it's building a new version because we pushed changes to the GitHub. So it's constantly listening for that. And if we go to our website, it'll still be the old version, but in a couple minutes, it'll update to have the updated content. And that's crazy. Like, I found this out 2 days ago and I'm still mind blown. Anyway, I'm heading off. I really hope this is still recording. Gonna upload this when I get to uni. But if you have any issues, let me know. I might be able to answer some. Hopefully this made sense. I wanted to cut it down a bit. Let me know how it went. Thanks.